Pay attention to this silver vehicle driving through Kissimmee, Florida at 7:30 in the morning on February 26th. In the passenger seat sits 13-year-old Madeline Soto. She is wearing her green school sweatshirt and appears to be on her way to Hunters Creek Middle School. She appears steady, perhaps just sleeping before class. But look closer at the unnatural angle of her head. It is slumped completely to the left and rigid. Madeline isn't sleeping. She has likely been dead for hours. And the driver, her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns, isn't taking her to school. He is currently driving her body around town in broad daylight, waiting for the perfect moment to move her into the trunk, which cameras will capture exactly 3 hours later. Madeline Soto, affectionately known as Maddie to those who loved her, was just 13 years old when her life was stolen from her. She lived in Kissimmee, Florida, a city known for its proximity to Orlando's theme parks and family-friendly atmosphere. Maddie was supposed to be living the carefree life of a middle schooler, attending Hunters Creek Middle School in Orlando, making friends, learning, and growing into the young woman she was meant to become. Like many teenagers, Maddie's life revolved around school, homework, and the typical routines that give young people structure and normalcy. She carried her backpack to school, used her school-issued laptop for assignments, and navigated the social complexities of middle school. Her mother, Jennifer Soto, was the center of her world, the parent responsible for her care and protection. But Maddie's home life was complicated by the presence of Stefan Michael Stearns, her mother's long-term boyfriend. Born on April 25, 1986, Stearns had inserted himself into their lives, occupying a position of trust and authority in the household. To the outside world, he may have appeared to be simply Jennifer's partner, but within the walls of their Kissimmee home, Stearns had access to Maddie in ways that would later prove devastating. February 26, 2024 began like any other school day should have. Madeline Soto was supposed to attend Hunters Creek Middle School in Orlando. Stephen Stearns told investigators he had dropped her off near the school around 8:40 a.m. It was a routine drop-off, or so he claimed. But that story was a complete fabrication, and technology would prove it. The truth, as revealed by an intricate web of surveillance footage, traffic cameras, and license plate readers, painted a horrific picture. At 7:30 a.m. that morning, Stearns was captured on video driving to a dumpster in the Venetian Bay area. Security cameras recorded him exiting his vehicle and disposing of 2 large white trash bags. But what made this footage particularly disturbing was what investigators could see inside the vehicle. In the passenger seat sat a white female, matching Maddie's description, wearing a green sweatshirt. Her head was slumped over to the left, and she was completely motionless. She didn't move at all during the entire time Stearns was disposing of the bags. Just 5 minutes later, at 7:35 a.m., more surveillance footage captured Stearns throwing items into a dumpster at the Kissimmee apartment complex. When investigators later searched that dumpster, they made a crucial discovery: Madeline's backpack and her school-issued laptop. These were items she would have needed for school that day. Their presence in the trash was proof that Stearns never intended to take her to school. Between 8:10 a.m. and 9:01 a.m., Stearns continued driving through the Central Florida Parkway area, entering and exiting Venetian Bay multiple times. During this entire period, Madeline remained visible in the front passenger seat, still in that same unnatural position with her head slumped to the left. This was happening during the exact time Stearns later claimed he was dropping her off at school. The cameras didn't lie. Maddie never made it to school that morning. According to Orange County Sheriff John Mina, investigators believed Madeline was already dead during these movements. At 9:35 a.m., Stearns drove into a parking garage. 4 minutes later, at 9:39 a.m., he parked his vehicle. Then came the moment that would seal his fate. At 9:41 a.m., surveillance cameras captured Stearns opening his trunk and placing Madeline's body inside. She was still wearing that green sweatshirt and blue pants. He then drove out of the parking garage, now with Maddie's body hidden in the trunk. When Jennifer Soto arrived at Hunters Creek Middle School around 8 p.m. on February 26th to pick up her daughter, she expected a routine pickup. Instead, school staff delivered devastating news. Madeline had never arrived at school that day. She hadn't attended a single class. Panic set in immediately, and Jennifer reported her daughter missing to authorities. The initial missing person report triggered an immediate response from law enforcement. Officers began piecing together Madeline's last known movements, and Stephen Stearns' account of dropping her off near the school became a focal point of the investigation. But investigators quickly grew suspicious of his timeline. The story didn't add up, and modern technology was about to expose every lie. Within hours, detectives began pulling surveillance footage from the area, checking license plate readers, and reviewing traffic camera footage. What they discovered sent the investigation in a dark direction. Stearns' vehicle movements on February 26th were completely inconsistent with his story about taking Maddie to school. Instead, the evidence showed a deliberate pattern of deception and disposal. As the investigators reviewed Stephen Stearns' movements on February 26th, the evidence increasingly conflicted with his statements to law enforcement. Surveillance footage documented a sequence of actions that suggested efforts to conceal evidence and mislead authorities. At approximately 9:41 a.m., Stearns was seen placing Madeline into the trunk of his vehicle. By 10:14 a.m., he returned to the Venetian Bay area, where Madeline was no longer visible inside the car. Later that morning, at 11:22 a.m., Stearns stopped at a vape shop before driving south towards St. Cloud, Florida, located roughly 30 miles from Orlando. The timeline continued to narrow investigators' focus. At 1:16 p.m., Stearns was recorded driving on Old Hickory Tree Road near Hickory Tree Elementary School. He remained in that area at 1:17 p.m. At 2:11 p.m., surveillance cameras captured his vehicle traveling west on Highway 192. At that point, the car was observed with a spare tire on the rear driver's side, an alteration not seen earlier in the day, indicating an unscheduled stop during his travels. Using this information, investigators concentrated on wooded areas near St. Cloud where Stearns had been driving. On March 1, 2024, 4 days after Madeline was reported missing, law enforcement located her remains in a wooded area off Hickory Tree Road in Osceola County. The location aligned with Stearns' documented movements on February 26th. The medical examiner later ruled Madeline Soto's death a homicide, determining the cause to be strangulation. With that finding, the investigation officially shifted from a missing person case to a homicide investigation led by the Kissimmee Police Department. Further evidence emerged through digital forensic analysis. On February 28, 2024, Stearns consented to a search of his phone and cloud storage accounts. Investigators recovered material that resulted in additional criminal charges related to unlawful sexual conduct and illegal digital content involving a minor. Although Stearns stated he had factory reset his phone on February 26th, investigators determined this action was not accidental. Despite the reset, forensic techniques allowed authorities to recover relevant data, including cloud-based records. On February 29th, 2024, Stearns was arrested. He was initially charged with offenses related to the digital evidence. Following the discovery of Madeline's body and confirmation of homicide, first-degree murder charges were added. The investigation concluded that Madeline was killed inside her Kissimmee home. Authorities determined that Stearns then spent the following hours attempting to dispose of evidence and construct a misleading account of events. Surveillance cameras, traffic systems, and license plate readers ultimately provided a comprehensive record of his movement, forming the basis of the case against him. To understand how Madeline Soto's life ended, it is important to understand the role Stephen Stearns played in her world. Stearns was not a stranger. He was her mother's long-term boyfriend, someone deeply embedded in the household and daily routines. His presence in Madeline's life came with familiarity, access, and trust, factors that are critical to understanding the case. Stearns occupied a position of responsibility within the home. As Jennifer Soto's partner, he was someone Madeline likely saw every day and someone who may have participated in ordinary family activities. Like many parents, Jennifer trusted her partner to be a safe and supportive presence in her child's life. That trust, investigators later concluded, was profoundly violated. Evidence recovered during the investigation indicated that Stearns had engaged in criminal behavior involving a minor. Digital forensic findings led to charges related to unlawful sexual conduct and illegal material, revealing a pattern of predatory behavior rather than an isolated incident. Experts note that individuals who commit these types of crimes often rely on access and familiarity. Being part of the household can allow abuse to remain hidden, as everyday interactions appear normal and do not immediately raise concern. The imbalance of power and authority within such relationships can make it especially difficult for a child to seek help or disclose what is happening. The psychological impact of this dynamic cannot be overstated. When abuse occurs within a trusted environment, victims may feel trapped or afraid to speak out, worried about consequences for their family, or concerned they may not be believed. These factors frequently delay disclosure and allow harm to continue undetected. Investigators determined that Stern's actions were not impulsive. The evidence suggested ongoing deliberate behavior that escalated over time. Ultimately, the situation ended in lethal violence. The medical examiner ruled Madeleine's death a homicide, with strangulation identified as the cause. Authorities believe Madeleine was killed inside the Kissimmee home she shared with her mother and Stearns sometime before the morning of February 26th. Following her death, Stearns did not seek help or report what had occurred. Instead, investigators concluded he attempted to conceal the crime and mislead authorities. Surveillance footage, digital records, and physical evidence documented his actions in the hours that followed. These records contradicted his statements and demonstrated efforts to avoid accountability. Law enforcement ultimately pieced together a detailed timeline that led to his arrest and the filing of first-degree murder charges, along with additional criminal counts. For Jennifer Soto, the revelations were devastating. The person she trusted as a partner had not only harmed her child, but taken her life. The case stands as a tragic example of how betrayal of trust within a family can have catastrophic consequences, and why vigilance and accountability are critical when protecting vulnerable children. The morning of February 26, 2024 represented the execution phase of Stephen Stearns' cover-up. Whether he had planned Maddie's murder in advance or made split-second decisions about how to hide his crime, the surveillance footage revealed a man methodically working through the steps necessary to conceal a homicide. Starting at 7:30 a.m., Stearns began disposing of evidence. The two large white trash bags he threw into the dumpster at Venetian Bay likely contained items from the crime scene, perhaps bedding, clothing, cleaning supplies, or other materials that bore evidence of Maddie's murder. He wanted these items far away from the house before anyone realized Maddie was missing. By 7:35 a.m., he was at another dumpster at the Kissimmee apartment complex, throwing away Maddie's backpack and school-issued laptop. These items would have been immediately recognized as belonging to her, and their absence would raise questions. By disposing of them, Stearns was trying to muddy the timeline and eliminate physical evidence that could be traced back to him. Throughout this disposal phase, Maddie's body remained in the passenger seat of his vehicle, visible to surveillance cameras but likely unseen by other drivers on the road. Her slumped posture and complete lack of movement during these stops suggest she had been dead for some hours by that point, possibly since the night before. Stearns drove around with her body in plain view, confident that no one would look closely enough to realize they were witnessing the aftermath of a murder. The decision to move Maddie from the front seat to the trunk at 9:41 a.m. likely reflected practical concerns. As more people began their morning routines and traffic increased, having a visibly deceased person in the passenger seat became too risky. The trunk offered concealment, allowing Stearns to continue his movements without fear of detection. His drive towards St. Cloud demonstrated knowledge of the area. He knew where to find remote, wooded areas where a body could be dumped with minimal risk of immediate discovery. The route along Old Hickory Tree Road took him past Hickory Tree Elementary School and into increasingly rural terrain. Somewhere along that route, likely in the wooded area off Hickory Tree Road where Maddie's body was eventually found, Stearns stopped and removed her body from the trunk. The spare tire that appeared on his vehicle by 2:11 p.m. suggests the terrain may have been rough enough to cause a flat tire, or that he drove off-road to access a more remote disposal site. This detail, while seemingly minor, helped investigators narrow down the timeline of when and where Stearns had dumped Maddie's body. After disposing of the body, Stearns had to return home and maintain the fiction that he had simply dropped Maddie off at school. He went about his day as if nothing had happened, likely interacting with Jennifer and perhaps even helping her search for Maddie once she was reported missing. The psychological compartmentalization required to murder someone and then pretend to be concerned about their disappearance reveals a deeply disturbed individual. The surveillance evidence against Stephen Stearns proved decisive. Investigators were able to track his movements on February 26, 2024, through a network of traffic cameras, license plate readers, and private security footage across Central Florida. Together, these sources created a detailed timeline that directly contradicted his account of events, including his claim that he had dropped Madeleine off at school. When confronted with this evidence, Stearns was unable to provide a consistent or credible explanation. He stated that he had accidentally factory reset his phone on the same day Madeline disappeared, a claim investigators viewed as highly suspicious. Combined with the surveillance data and physical evidence, this raised serious concerns about an attempt to conceal relevant information. Stearns was arrested on February 29, 2024. At the time of his arrest, he faced multiple felony charges related to unlawful conduct and illegal digital material. These charges alone carried significant potential penalties. On March 1, 2024, after Madeline's body was located and the medical examiner ruled her death a homicide caused by strangulation, prosecutors added first-degree murder charges. The case proceeded through the court system over the following year. Stearns ultimately faced 3 primary charges: first-degree murder, sexual battery, and possession of illegal material involving minors. Prosecutors argued that these charges reflected a pattern of escalating criminal behavior that culminated in Madeline's death. In July 2025, Stephen Michael Stearns was sentenced. The sentence reflected the seriousness of the offenses and the strength of the evidence presented at trial. Under Florida law, a first-degree murder conviction can result in life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or, in some cases, the death penalty. The additional convictions ensured that Stearns would remain incarcerated for the remainder of his life, regardless of any future legal challenges. Court proceedings included detailed presentations of surveillance records, digital forensic findings, and medical evidence, as well as statements from those affected by the crime. Together, this information established a comprehensive account of Stearns' actions and their consequences. For the Kissimmee community, for Madeline's loved ones, and especially for her mother, the sentencing represented a measure of accountability. While no legal outcome could undo the harm or restore what was lost, the court's decision ensured that Stearns would be held responsible and would not be able to harm others in the future. Madeline Soto should be alive today. She should be in high school now, building friendships, discovering her interests, and thinking about her future. Instead, her life was cut short, and her name has become part of a heartbreaking pattern involving children harmed by individuals who were trusted to care for them. Her case underscores the risks that can exist when children live in households with adults who are not their parents. Stephen Stearns entered Maddie's life through his relationship with her mother and was granted access and trust within the home. Investigators later determined that this trust was exploited with devastating consequences. Situations like this highlight how difficult it can be to recognize warning signs when the person causing harm is someone familiar and trusted. For Jennifer Soto, the loss of her daughter brings unimaginable grief and unanswered questions. Many parents in similar circumstances struggle with self-blame, wondering whether they missed signs or could have acted differently. These questions rarely have clear answers, and they add another layer of pain to an already profound loss. Maddie's case also demonstrates the growing importance of technology in modern investigations. Surveillance systems and digital forensic tools played a critical role in reconstructing events and uncovering the truth. Without those resources, key evidence might never have come to light. Above all, Madeline Soto's story is a reminder of the responsibility we share to protect children. Her life mattered. Remembering her means remaining attentive, informed, and willing to take concerns seriously, especially when something doesn't feel right. Awareness and vigilance can make a difference, even in environments that appear safe on the surface. Thank you for taking the time to learn about Maddie's story. If you found this case informative, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel.